Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the National Parents Union presents Speak Your Truth with yours truly, Vivette Duke. So wonderful to be here with all of you tonight. It is February 4th, 2021. It is Black History Month. I call it Black History Life for me, in case you haven't noticed. I am Black 365, 24/7, 365. But we celebrate this month in particular um, for the achievements, the accomplishments, the accolades, the struggles, and the celebrations of all members of the African diaspora. So happy Black History Month, everybody. And I hope that you're proclaiming that very loudly from the hilltops. It's Black History Month. Say it with me. It's Black History Month. Thank you. Let's celebrate. Let's celebrate if we truly believe Black lives matter, which they do, then we want to elevate and celebrate the lives of Black people in all ways, shapes, and forms. So we thank you for being here. We thank you for celebrating with us. I'd like to thank the National Parents Union for this platform, for the ways in which we are able to come into your homes, to sit with you, to sup with you, and to just have this hour once a week to really spend with one another and to get to know our guests. Each of them come with their own rich history. They come with things to lend to us that really strengthen us. I find from week to week as I reflect on what each weekly guest has said, I'm able to draw something from it, something that really encourages me and helps me think about life in a new way, in a reimagined way. So just really, really happy to be here. Hi, Paul. How are you? We have some people joining in. Hi, Paul Bloomberg, one of my favorite human beings, has quickly become one of my most favorite human beings on the planet. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, I have the wonderful pleasure of presenting to you our guest, Mrs. Ebony Wilkins. I did not ask Ebony for a bio per se. I could tell you a lot of things, some of which you read already about her. She's a graduate of Nassau Community College. She is a mother to two wonderful young men. She is a wife, something that recently happened. Congratulations. She recently got married. But most of all, she is such a beautiful friend and a young woman who has really taken the lemons of life and turned them into lemonade. And I admire her so much. I've admired Ebony Wilkins for a long time, even before she was Ebony Wilkins, when she was little Eb. And I'm just so happy to have her here tonight, and she'll be talking with us about many different things: the COVID-19 pandemic, her parenting, her children and their education, and really the bedrock of who she is, her faith. So, without further ado, please welcome and celebrate tonight, Mrs. Ebony Wilkins. Hi, Ebony.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great.
It's just so surreal to see you like this. No, for we've known each other.
A long time.
We're not gonna
20,
age ourselves,
21,
but yeah, it's over
22
20
years.
years. It's over
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah.
Um, I knew you as a teenager. I knew your grandmother first,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Sister
Yeah.
Williams. And just a wonderful presence in my life. And I don't feel unabashed to say this, that
Mhm.
your grandmother would always see me as a young mother.
Yeah. She loves you.
And yeah, she really loved me. She would
Yeah.
always say to me, if I ever came into any
Hmm.
money, if
I
God,
remember.
if God ever blessed
I
me, I
remember.
want you to know I have you.
Yes.
And she was always so encouraging to me
Yeah.
as a young mother. By the age of 24, I had 2 children,
Yes.
and I was struggling and bringing them into church and making sure that they had a foundation. And your grandmother really, she really spoke life into me, and I think she saw things that others didn't necessarily see,
Yes.
and always had an encouraging word for me, even a smile, a touch, and it just that made me love you more.
Yeah.
That was a mommy look. I saw it. Don't you come on this live. You know I'm here. Back up. Too funny. But yeah, it just made me love you. Then when I met you, I was like, little sis, hi.
Right.
And you were like, wow, what have you told them about me, Grandma? Everyone showing me mad love, but we just embraced
Yes.
me,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Emil,
Yes.
the crew, right?
It really was.
It
It
really
really was.
was. Wow, Ev.
It was. It was like
So
a whole nother family.
whole nother family. And we
Mm.
spent like
It
every
was genuine.
it was genuine. We
It was
spent every
definitely
weekend
genuine.
together
And
years, for years. Every
mhm.
Saturday.
Started with one weekend, and that was it
That was it. For years.
for years.
Yes. So it's really wonderful to see you and surreal to see you now as an adult, first of
Mhm.
all, as a grown woman with
Yes.
your career and your family. Your husband is just really
Yes.
beautiful. It's a testament to just how good God is.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I wanted to start off tonight just talking to you about your experience as a healthcare administrator. What has your experience been like in the pandemic we are all in with the COVID-19 pandemic? Could you talk to us about that, please?
Um, it had its times of challenging moments. It's been good career wise. I've been promoted twice
Oh,
in 2020. Um, and so that was a big thing because there were a lot of people that were furloughed or laid off. And I was actually being promoted in that time. I believe that it definitely brought out um, the different qualities and allowed people to really see. Um, it also plays a part mentally, having to see people sick the way they were, having to deal with the burden of families,
mm,
knowing that after we have swabbed them and tested them for COVID and realized that they were positive, having to, depending on their symptoms, having to send them to the hospital,
mm,
and then them having a worry or, kind of resistance of sending their family member to the hospital, knowing that they couldn't go with them. And so we had to be not only just in the medically inclined with them, but we also had to be sort of their counselor and,
mm.
um, you know, more in the psychological area of work, rather than just in the medical field, diagnosing. And so that was a little challenging because then we had to also deal with our own selves, who were maybe afraid to bring it home, maybe had a loved one at home, maybe didn't want to have it themselves, knowing the different things that were going on. Um, so it was a lot. A lot of us didn't have anxiety issues, and it brought it out. I myself didn't have anxiety issues, not medically on record, and I feel that for maybe the time of what, April through about August, I was, yeah, I mean, anxiety on a high. And mind you, I
When
was
did you know?
married at the same time. So that comes with its own anxiety, So, and then having to deal with, am I even going to make it to my wedding day? These thoughts come in, in your head,
Mm.
because of all the things that you see.
How did you know you were experiencing anxiety? It might sound like a very simplistic question, but um, for viewers out there who may be saying, I think I'm experiencing anxiety, I'm not quite sure, what signs might they look for? How did you know you had anxiety within your own body and mind?
Um, I believe I knew something was different once everything I talked about was COVID. Every answer was COVID. My son would cough, and it was stay in your room, close your door till I figure things out. Like everything was, and I believe that I wouldn't say I knew when I was mentally overthinking. I kind of knew when I started exuberating symptoms as far as fluctuating heart rate, um, things of that can't breathe, things of that nature. Once that started, then I was still kind of in denial because in my head I had COVID,
Mm,
even though I didn't. And I started to think that when I started to look back at things,
mhm,
that everything was basically, I allowed my mind to just go wayward.
mm,
And it took a while to bring it back in. It took a lot of, um, affirmations of my faith. It
yes.
took a lot of, I tested myself to the point it wasn't weekly anymore. It was daily.
Oh my.
Um, I had to actually go on medicine. And then all of a sudden, I was like, God, I can't live like this. I can't be
Mm,
like this. I'm about to be married. I can't be jumping and, everything. And then how am I going to be a help to my patients if I'm like this? And it took me to kind of like fast and pray and for it to, to stop. And then all of a sudden I wasn't on medication no more, like
mm.
just in thin air. Just I stopped taking it little by little, and then next year I never needed it. And that was a big thing to me because I was so codependent on this medicine. I felt like if I didn't take this medicine, either I thought I was going to die. So I really had a need for this medicine. For me to just all of a sudden just stop, that was really big for me.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Think it's so important that you highlighted, first of all, identifying things that are different within your own body and mind. So a sense of knowing yourself and trusting yourself,
absolutely,
right? Like,
absolutely,
I know myself, something isn't right here. And
absolutely,
then taking it the step further to seek out some type of medical health, whether it's a mental health or
right,
physical health. I know in our community there can be challenges with that,
yeah,
like seeking counseling and
right,
getting on medication and coupling that with the
right.
faith and prayer.
But
Can you?
what I realized what worked is it wasn't the medication that worked. All I
Mm,
needed was to do was talk. And a lot of times we don't
mm,
realize that a lot of just the conversation is sometimes all you need. And it took conversations daily with a fellow coworker and others who I thought I was by myself dealing with it. And I realized that there were a lot others that were dealing with it, doctors, nurses, everyone included. My staff was dealing with it. And so when I realized, when I went to the doctor, it was more of, I'm going to give you this medication, this will calm you down. But it was never, let's talk about, why do you
mm,
feel this way? Why
mm.
do you think you're going to die? Why do you think you have COVID? And so therapy definitely worked. And once I did, once I talked it out, then I really didn't, the medication I didn't need it anymore.
I see MH Susie here. Hi, Susie is
Hi,
saying
Susie.
therapy necessary for mental
Yes,
health
it
care.
really is. It
And
really
I
is.
know she is, Susie, keep on chiming in the chat because I know that she is a counselor.
Yes.
So she does have much to add to this conversation. But I really just want to highlight that if you need help, and if you said that was between, like, say, April and August, really at the height of the
Yes.
pandemic so far, um, it's really important that you seek that help out because, as Ebony said, this was affecting multiple areas of her
Yes.
life where everything was COVID,
Yes.
COVID, COVID, COVID. I love what Naomi's saying. It's like a COVID related
Yes.
post traumatic
PTSD.
stress
Yes.
disorder. Yeah. How did that impact your family? Because you said you were preparing for your wedding. So what was your fiance said? You just have to laugh. It's good to be able to laugh about it now, right?
Oh. I don't even know if he's on, but he would love to answer this question.
Are we going to have the husband on next? We need his addition.
So I practically drove him crazy.
Right.
That's it. I practically drove him crazy. I called him all hours of the night. And, you know, I even had an episode at his house, and it was kind of a fight flight experience that I don't know. It was 1 minute I felt away. I felt like I can't even really describe how I felt. I just knew that it had whatever it was just going to overtake me. So I automatically called 911. I was like, babe, I'm not feeling well. And the next thing you know, I was calling 911 on his phone. And so I was already on the phone with the emergency response before he knew what was going on. I was on the phone, and they was just like, they had asked me questions, and he's looking at me with this stare, like, what are you doing? What's going on? And he's trying to ask me, please explain to me how you're feeling. And I didn't know how I was feeling. And so I was just like, I don't know how I'm feeling. Like, and he was just like, she's going crazy. Like, he really thought I was going crazy. It was just, I don't know, just one of those fight flight experiences where I felt like wherever I needed to just go. And I didn't know where I was going, but I needed to go.
But you made it through.
Yeah, I did. I did. So, I mean, I think, in the long run, we talked about it and stuff, but, if I didn't let my son go anywhere, like as in nowhere, he didn't get to go outside. And so, it affected them for a small period of time. But as I began to, I was calling the ambulance maybe once a week. And so that was that was very big on my kids. That was very big on my fiance at the time. Knowing that he would get a phone call in the middle of the night because I already had called the ambulance. I didn't go with them, but I was just calling them, and they kind of gave me a peace of mind because they would give me the oxygen and everything. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm okay. Now I can go to sleep, but yeah, it was a lot.
You mentioned your children. How many children do you have? I'm asking these questions not for my benefit, for those who don't know you. How
So
many
I have
children do you have?
two handsome boys, Zahir Williams and Julius Cole. One is turning 18 this year, and the other turning 14 in a couple of months.
Get it out there. She's like turning 18
in a couple of weeks. So, and they're amazing. They're amazing boys, never in trouble. Of course they're children, but they've never, I don't have anything bad to say. They're just amazing. To me, they're mama's boys. So, they protect me. Yeah. They still protect me, even with my husband. It's funny. They would sleep right in the middle of us, and we'd be like, what are you doing? Right here, right in the middle. We're sitting on the couch, and they're like, oh, I'll have a seat right here, in the middle of us. So they're really funny. But, they're definitely wonderful boys. Zaire should be graduating this year. He goes to an Ivy League high school. And then my son Julius, who is in junior high school. And so I'm really proud of them. I really am proud of them. Raising two teenage boys, raising boys, period. I didn't think I can do it. But I'm very, very proud of the boys that they've become.
I am a proud auntie. And you were a teenage mother.
Yes.
You were a teenage mother. I remember you sharing that you were pregnant when you were with both your boys, but I'm speaking now of your eldest son, Zaire. Yeah. What was that like, Ebony? Because we don't hear a lot about it as much
Mhm.
anymore, the way it was even a decade ago or two,
Right.
when a young lady became pregnant and as a teenage mother, it was a really big deal.
Mhm.
What was your experience as a teenage mom?
Um, so I had my first child at 15 years old. Um, that right there in itself was a lot. Um, you kind of dealt with a lot of criticism, shame, being a teenage mom. Um, I dealt with a lot of, I didn't want to be a statistic. And so I had to kind of fight, you know, for everything that I got at that time. Um, it was a lot physically. My first son was premature by about 2 months and change. Born 3 pounds. Um,
Mm,
I was still in school. Um, I was in my last year of high school. I did graduate before my class did. Me and Shawana was in, I think she's on here, was in the same.
yeah, she said hi. Hi, Shawana.
Me and Shawana was in the, we both had the same, we graduated in '05, but I graduated in January. She graduated in June.
Mm,
I mean, so that was a blessing. But it was definitely a lot to deal with all of that and then still parent. Um, I was still a kid,
mhm,
trying to raise a kid. Let's be real. And because he was my first child, I did not want I didn't want to make any mistakes. And so I felt I was very strict on my first child, extremely strict on my first child. I didn't want to make any mistakes with him. I didn't, I wanted everything that I may have not had for him, you know? And so it was a lot of pressures and still making sure that, I got that degree, still making sure that, I went to school. I had to work, you know, my um, mother, who was really my grandmother biologically, she didn't play. So it was, you made this bed, you lay in it. And I really now really respect that from her. A lot of times we don't understand what our parents do and why they do it until later. And I'm so appreciative of her, of just that gesture of you made your bed, you lay in it,
mm.
because it called me to grow up. And I would definitely say Zaire was my grow up child. He grew me up. We grew up together, but he grew me up. And yeah.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of
Thank you,
love.
Laquita.
Laquita, Susie, I want you to see these and really be affirmed by them and feel the love that you are receiving from
Thank you,
everyone,
guys.
and how encouraging and inspiring your vulnerability and your transparency is about
Mhm.
your journey as a teenage mother, as a single mother. You know, as Naomi says, you're breaking all the
Thank
statistics,
you.
you're living proof.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so often our children are looking to people that are not tangible. So they're looking
Absolutely.
to stars to
Absolutely.
glean information from or to emulate. Um,
Absolutely.
but I really can respect and do respect the way you pay homage to your mother,
Yes.
your grandmother turned mother for the woman who helped raise you, to
Yes.
really say, I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now
Yes,
and
I
I
do.
appreciate it. Um, I was in a meeting earlier today and something so profound was said, just in line with parenting,
Hmm.
that Ruby Bridges, famous civil rights activist from a
Yeah.
little girl, right?
Hmm.
She desegregated schools. They said, yeah, but Ruby Bridges didn't file the lawsuit. Her parents did.
Hmm.
And I said, wow, I never thought about that. The parents, we have such an important role
Yes.
in society, not only in our children's lives,
Right.
society, and the fact that first of all that you took on that responsibility
Yes.
at 15. And
Yeah.
I remember you being very adamant saying, I'm going to have my baby.
Yes.
And even that was, you know,
Yeah. Because, could have went the easy way out. But, you know, my mother always taught me accountability.
mhm,
And so I had to take accountable for what I did.
mhm,
It wasn't no fault of my child.
mhm,
And just continue life because it doesn't end there. It doesn't have to end there. And that was one thing I was always taught. Does it ends where you permit it to end, but it doesn't, I didn't it doesn't end that I just had a baby, but what I can still that's why I always encourage other young people that, it doesn't end your future. It might make things might take a little longer. It might impact, but it doesn't have to stop it. You can do what you want to do. We all choose to do the things that we want to do. And so if you want to succeed, go succeed. You know, um, don't give up. Continue to do what you want to do. Just know that you have to work twice as hard to get it. But if you are determined enough, you will. And just stay the process. Stay the process. I always wondered, like what happened if I didn't have my children?
mhm,
Where would I be mentally? Like, would I be, um, how would, my maturity level be, you
mhm.
know? And I'm just grateful to God that I did have my children. I believe that they played an important part in my maturity, and my maturity level and the advancement of where it is now.
Yeah. My own daughter is sitting here in the studio
Really?
right now with me, and she's saying to you, women like you lead for young women like me, Ebony, that she grew up seeing you as well. Someone's
Yes.
always watching.
Yes. And you never
Someone's always
know.
watching.
Yes.
Someone who grew up watching you, like, thanks. Thanks for being a positive
Mhm.
role
Wow.
model even through your struggles.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, with that in line, that's you and Zaire. What happened when Julius came along? You were still a young mother. How much time passed? What was that situation like now?
So Julius, I had at 19 years old. They're about exactly 3.5 months apart. Three
Years?
and a half years apart.
Mhm.
And having a 3-year-old child and now having to deal with the infant,
And
it
now
was
being a teenage mother of
up
two
to
children.
children was definitely it was definitely. I think I was more in denial with having Julius. Like, no, I'm not pregnant. There's just no way.
I need another test. You've taken
This
10.
is not it. This is
False
wrong.
positive.
Yeah, this is defective. And um, I was just like, here we go again. I think having my youngest son, I was like, okay, all right, God, all right, I won't. I promise. This is not happening again. And I it was right then where I said, I'm gonna have to wait till I get married. I'm not going to, I looked at the ways of my biological mother, and I was just like, I can't walk in those footsteps, and I can't just be having babies. And I was just like, no. So from then on I was just like, okay. And thank God, I'm married, and
Mhm.
Julius was definitely my last child. Won't be my last child, but was definitely my last child. And so there was definitely more judgment, like, okay, the first time is a oops, this was, you did this on purpose, or things of that nature. I definitely dealt with a lot of judgment during the second pregnancy, more than the first pregnancy. I kind of want to say that, even my mom, even if she judged me, at that time. And so I think that hurt it more. Um, the two pregnancies hurt it differently
Mhm.
with her response, but I believe the second definitely hurt it more. But I had to understand, you know, well, look, sometimes, the truth might hurt, but you have to be able to look in the mirror and say and really acknowledge, like, okay, you know, you did this, you did know better, you know,
Yeah.
and you still went this route. And not that my kids were a mistake at all, but it didn't have to, you know, it didn't have to be like that. And from then on, I was just like, well, how am I going to carry this child? And because he's still an infant, and lift up this stroller, or be pregnant, So, but you know, like Sarita said, there's a purpose in every mistake, and it is. It's definitely a purpose in every mistake, and I see it more now than I did before.
And also in thinking, as you mentioned earlier in our conversation, that you understand better now the things, the ways that your grandmother was raising you,
Yes,
when you were younger. With that in mind, I'm sure she was going through her own shame, her
yes,
own
yes.
questioning.
He
What
was.
did I go wrong? What did
Hmm.
I do? Why
Yes,
is this happening? The
yes,
side eyes and the looks and the whispers and the
yes,
stares and just having
yes.
to deal with that was, I'm sure, factored into
No.
everything that you felt from her. Like, dag, Eb, you
Hmm.
see me
You kind
trying.
of blamed yourself that you did this. The
Yeah.
reason why she feels embarrassed is because of you, and then you kind of then now you're shameful, and you're like, I'm a mistake, or I'm just like what I would call my biological mother, or you start to or I became the statistic that everybody already said I was,
Mm,
and then you fall into those thoughts, and it really plays mentally on you, weighs mentally on you. But then you have to remember that, okay, you dealt with the first time, and so you still can't give up. You still
mhm.
have to do what you're supposed to do. At the end of the day, you still made this bed, you still have to lay in it. And so what are you going to do about the mistakes that you made, or what are you going to do about this challenge? Are you just going to sit there and mope and feel sorry for yourself, or are you going to pick yourself back up again and keep moving forward? And that was just one of the things that I had to do, was keep moving forward. How is this going to impact my relationship with God,
Mm,
and things of that nature? And what do I do now, now that you have two children? What do you do now? And so it was a lot to think of, and a lot to digest, but it's one of those things that you don't have a choice. You have to digest it all, and you have to deal with it all. You have to face it head on.
yes. How did you move forward? I get it's a really difficult question, a loaded question in a sense,
Hmm.
or a broad question. How did you, like, find that will, find that strength to, at 19 years old? I don't think people are really grasping the gravity
Hmm.
of what
Yeah,
you are saying, your life
yeah.
situation, and you've said some things here tonight that if we really take everything into account, how did you, as a 19-year-old girl, do this? How did you raise two Black boys as a single mother by yourself, also getting your own education? It's not as if
Mhm.
you were established or anything in that
Right.
way. As you said, you were still growing up.
Yes.
How did you do that?
Um, I have to say, only God. I know the answer sounds so simple or
Mhm,
so cliche,
mhm,
but I really believe that if it wasn't if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Um, I wouldn't have been able to go forward mentally if I didn't have God. My grandmother was a big part in my faith. I've watched her overcome all struggles, battles, being married, and then having to raise me as a single parent. And I've watched her never miss a beat. I watched her never complain. I've watched her only pray, and I used to be like, but I understood, I understood then the power of prayer. I understood then, the reason why I had to read my word, and the reason why I had to continue to affirm those things that God said I was. And so, and to just, not worry so much on what people thinking, but had to focus on what do I think about myself,
Mm,
because only that will get me through. Only what I think about myself will predicate whether I move forward or not.
mhm.
And so, and so it really was just only God, that I, survived every moment. I didn't dot every I, I didn't cross every T, but it took me to really, look at myself in the mirror and focus on those things that I need to correct, and um, think about, well, how did you get here, and then now, how do you not end up back here? And so that's when I became heavily in church, heavily in ministry. Um, there was a lot of times where I felt like the need that I had to be always in church, and not that one has to, but it was what I needed to get me focused for a period of time, so that I could remain focused
Yes.
in the long run. And I found myself just really indulging myself in the Word and with God, and really just, you know, as Susie says, self affirmations.
Mm,
I really believe what you believe about yourself predicates your future.
mm,
And so if you have doubt in yourself, or have these certain insecurities, it really stops you from doing all that you can do. So um, I really just tried to follow the lead of how my mother raised me.
yeah.
I looked at the difference of how I was raised, and then how my siblings were raised, and the different and what was the difference in our you know in our upbringing. How did they get where they were,
Mhm.
and which was not always a good ending. And then, what is the difference of why I am where I am at? And I realized it was just the upbringing of my grandmother that raised me. It was her that, taught me the faith. It was her that made sure that the only book I read was the Bible. I promise you, there was a time where I didn't read Dr. Seuss. I didn't know nothing about green eggs and ham. I'm sure I'm not even saying it right. Didn't know nothing about it. It was, and she didn't just let me, I had to read King James Version, like, so, but it was that helped me.
Mm,
It was that those scriptures that were constantly um, um, building up my foundation, that helped
mm,
me in the long run later to say, okay, so, it's so funny because we say, oh, we'll never be like our mother. We get into those, teenage, especially teenage girls, sometimes we get a little sassy, at one point in our life, and we get to that area where, I'm never going to be like that, mom.
mm,
I'm
mm.
never going to do this. And we get the little
You
shaking
know
of
what
the
she's
head,
talking about. I know
you
what
know?
I got.
Yes, I know what I'm doing. And oh, you're from the old
Mad old
days,
fashioned.
old
Okay.
fashioned. You have no idea about this time. And I realized that she was right. The methods might have changed over time, but it didn't necessarily negate that she was wrong. She was right. And so when I realized that, I just tried to like imitate, the way she brought me up, and the way I bring up my kids.
Mm,
And so there was a time where I was very strict. I mean, you would have thought I was born in her era, 1941. I was very strict. I believe that as they got older, I lightened up, but I was very strict at that time because I wanted their foundation to be strong. I didn't want them to be those kids that I see out in the street, or even the kids that I grew up with, And so I was very scared. I was like, I told God every day, I'm not going to nobody's jail cell. I'm not about any of the take off your clothes and touch me, pat me down. I was like, I don't want that. and that's all I saw was single parents and single mothers, and having to go back and forth, into the system, and having to worry about the kids coming home, by a police car, or not making it home at all.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot. And so I tried to do everything that I could do, including being overly strict, to make sure that didn't happen. And then what caused me to lighten up was when I saw that they were okay. The foundation is still there. The foundation is there. And so it totally had me lighten up, especially on my older son, because he got it really bad. Especially on my older son, he got it really bad. And you know, when I look at him today, it was just like, all of the, you know, don't talk back, or don't, we live in an era where, your kids you have to let them talk. You have to let them speak. And I didn't grow up that way. I grew up with whatever my mother said, that's what it was. And the say, excuse me, talk what? There was none of that. There was no about you don't have feelings. Like, that was the answer. And so I saw myself imitating that and saying that. And then I realized that I no longer had to do that, and that it wasn't working as they got older. And so to especially with boys, they're a little different from girls. And I started to just, listen to my male friends. I kept them around a lot of my male friends. I've asked my male friends how to deal with another male,
Mhm.
which also I believe helps in my marriage now, because men are different in the way they respond and the way they talk.
Mhm.
Nagging or always constantly talking, they don't want to hear that. Just tell them what you want them to do, leave it alone, and keep it moving. They don't want to hear anything extra. And yeah, yeah. And at one point, I thought it was like disrespect. Like, I finished talking when I finished talking, but I realized that, there was two different languages going on, and I had to speak their language if I was going to be effective, and I was going to continue to be that mother where, that mother that was able to speak to the child, and the child actually speak back. I believe that that's a lot of where kids, go to the wayside, is when they don't feel like they have anybody to talk to, and so they go find this family outdoors, and that's where they get their information from, and that's who they're talking to.
What I hear you saying tonight is several things, but one of the things I hear you saying is that you made some determinations about where your life was headed, and you said this is where I want to go, and you set your sights on getting there. The other thing I hear you say, so that's goal setting, like just takeaways from what you're
Hmm.
saying.
Hmm.
Do some goal setting. I also heard you say you put yourself into an environment where you felt safe so you could grow.
Right.
And in your case, it was church. That
Yeah.
was a place you felt safe and where you could grow.
Yes.
So that's something we can take away to say no matter what we are going through,
Hmm.
sometimes you may have to remove yourself, isolate yourself, just get yourself in a place where I'm safe here and I can grow here and I'm being nourished here.
Absolutely.
I also heard you say that from the upbringing that you had, you were able to take away the good, take
Hmm.
what you need, and
Yes.
discard what you don't need. You didn't
Absolutely.
necessarily throw out the baby with the
Yes.
bathwater.
Absolutely.
And that is really a sign of your growth and maturity. And you realize, and as a parent, you realize when you were making some errors and you corrected them.
Absolutely.
So these are strategies. And the reason I'm reiterating it is because I want our viewers to walk away with strategies. We have guests on every week, not just to fill a time slot or to take up your time.
Right.
We value you coming on here and spending your time. And so you should leave this from this hour feeling like, okay, I got something from it besides, hearing Ebony's story. Because you could watch TV for that. It's about what are you taking away from it that's going to bolster your story.
Right.
empower each of our own
Absolutely.
personal stories, even
Absolutely.
as the National Parents, you're talking about parenting styles
Mhm.
and what works for one child may not
May
work
not
for
work
the
for the
other,
next.
and even having both children, both boys, and me knowing both of them, I can say Zaire and Julius are very different.
Black and white.
They're very different. And I knew that from young. I know that even now.
In the
If
womb.
I go, like go out, party I'm going with Julius because that's
Yes.
his what
Yes.
he's
Yes.
about. From a baby, I would turn up. He's right there,
Yes.
turn up.
Yes.
Year's gonna be the one like, let's keep it grounded.
Yes.
I need you to be level.
Yes.
From a little boy, he was like
Absolutely.
very even keel, you know. And you saw that and you made the adjustments because they
Mhm.
are two very different
Two very
different
different children.
very
Absolutely.
different children. You're really giving Naomi a lot of life here, and she's gonna stop nagging her boy. She's convicted, single mom to a son, thanking you for that. Oh my God, I needed that, Ebony. This is why we're here.
Yes.
And Susie's laughing because we all know Zaire would be like, let's pray
Yes.
all day.
That's all. Preach and pray. And he still does. He still does. He still does. If I'm doing something, he'll pick up the scripture and he just, you know, mom, that was not God like. Mom, that was God is not pleased.
And you know what's wonderful? As you said, you and Zaire and your children really grew up together.
Hmm.
As
Really good.
young mothers, we do grow with our children. And
Absolutely.
it gets to a point where you can really look back and tell them, thank you. Because you
Hmm.
helped raise me as much as I
Raised you.
absolutely,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
What are their educations like? You've talked to us about the education they received at home, which is the first place of
Hmm.
education. I
Hmm.
want to put a broadcast for that to all
Hmm.
parents. The home is the first place where
Absolutely.
our children are educated. Anything outside of the home supplements what you're doing in the home.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, it doesn't overpower or usurp what you are doing. It should
Absolutely.
only supplement and enhance it. So, talk to us about your children, your son's educations outside of the home environment that you have for them, specifically as young black boys. I have to preface it with that.
Yes. Yes. Because yes.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, it is different. Um, so outside of the home, they both went to public school. Um, and so with that, the education is a little type different
Hmm.
than if you went to private school. There was at one point where they went to school in Long Island, which was way different than when they was in public school out in Queens. The way that the education that they received, I feel was better when
Where?
they was in Long Island, than when they were in Queens. Um, Growing up, especially with well, I guess we'll say both my children. Maybe what make let's see how I word this. I guess them being black boys, it was challenging. I remember at one point them thinking that my youngest son couldn't speak
Mhm.
or and it wasn't of that, like he never spoke that he had a brother or anything of that nature. And then it wasn't that, just he wasn't being challenged. And so when the teacher actually challenged him, she was like, oh my God, he read the whole book to me. I didn't know that he could even, let alone read. I didn't know he could speak, and I feel like they were in a class with about over 30 children, and so the class is already overcrowded. A lot of times, depending on the teacher, if the teacher is not invested in their future, then they'll get overlooked. They'll take any behavior as bad behavior, and not necessarily try to figure out what's happening, what's going on. Are they getting bullied? I feel like sometimes the teachers could be overworked, and maybe that's why some of the students are overlooked.
Mhm.
And them growing up in public school and not private school, sometimes it affects their education, um, and then it affects your parenting, of trying to figure out what is going on. Um, the good thing about it is that it wasn't I didn't have challenges to where they were being suspended or expelled. Wasn't fighting in school or any of that nature. But there was times where maybe more Julius than Zaire, um was they were a little more active than what they wanted them to be. And a lot of times it could mean that they are not challenged enough. Julius is a smart kid, full of energy, still full of energy. And he's one of those kids that needs to be challenged. Zaire, because he was already calm and more, I would say, a introvert. You know, teachers just loved him.
I can tell you as a teacher, Zaire's personality, like we have teachers like sit with your hand. They
but
want
everybody's not like that.
everyone's not like that. And so our from working at a school with all black
Hmm.
boys, I know that our boys learn very differently,
Absolutely.
and the things that they do to release that energy,
Are
like
way
banging
different
on
from
the
most
table,
women.
always making beats, always being or building things, taking the pencil cap and doing stuff. It's not always ADHD. They don't need a
Right.
label, but what they need is a positive outlet, and they don't need to be looked upon as a problem in the
Right.
classroom, but instead
Right.
say, okay, let me challenge myself to see how can I help exert that energy in a positive way, right? Repurpose that energy. But
Mhm.
that often is not what happens. So you are
Absolutely.
right in saying, thankfully they were not tracked for suspension or
Right.
for a special education track, because we do
No, well, they tried,
they try.
and they tried, and sometimes it takes that parent to fight back and say, "No, my child is not special. I mean, well, it does not belong in a special ed." That can't be the first answer that you go to.
Mm,
And why is that the first answer you go to? If this was another kid of a different race, would that be the first thing that you tell them to run to? And that is put them in a class where they don't belong. And then sometimes if you are that parent that may not know, then you end up questioning your parenting skills, or if you co-parent with somebody else, they end up questioning your parenting skills. And it's not, you know, sometimes you just have to know that certain things you have to fight for, that, that's not always the answer. You have to figure out first, well, why is he doing what he's doing? Maybe that's a conversation you need to have with the child, or is it maybe the teacher is not compatible with the child? Sometimes, if the teacher, find out, does the teacher have control over her class?
mhm.
At that point, when that was going on, we realized that the teacher didn't have control over her class. And so sometimes students can't, um, and I believe your environment matters, and certain students can't learn in certain environments, and so like even with 2020, with the pandemic, and being in school at home, my oldest son struggled a lot at one point. Of course, he passed with flying colors, but it was a struggle at first to not be in the classroom,
Right.
and be home knowing that I can relax in this bed and still do schoolwork. I have the TV right in front of me. Maybe I should watch that for a little while and come back to my schoolwork. And you don't have those options, at school. And
Mhm.
so, the environment really matters. And I think teachers like you, really benefit with students in this era, because these students are not going to be like us, and boys are way different from girls. I didn't go through the chat. My boys go through different challenges than what I went through when I was younger, and talking to my child and realizing the certain challenges he went through. I didn't go through that as a female, as a girl. I didn't go through that growing up, and so um,
Mhm.
you know it's just different, and we have to be observant and pay attention, and then know your child. Don't agree just because somebody labels your child as something, then that you just run with it. Know your child. There are naive parents out there that feel like the child's excellent and their child may not be excellent, but I knew my child's faults, but I also knew their giftings, and so I knew what my child would do and what they wouldn't do, and so there's certain things you just couldn't tell me that my child did, because I know what my child is capable of. Yes, they might have, said a thing or two. Like, I know, what my child's capable of, but you can't tell me they did this or they
Right.
did that, And so, um, got to take the labels off for children. And then sometimes if they hear that, they end up being that, So we really have to be careful what we allow other people to label our children. Um, and that's pretty much it.
That's such words of wisdom tonight. Um, thank you. Thank you for sharing
Thank you for
portion
having me.
of your journey with us.
Yes.
I know that many who watch this definitely are really going to be blessed by it and walk
Mhm.
away like, okay, here's a woman who looks like me, who's gone through things I've gone through, and she's
Absolutely.
overcome. And
Absolutely.
that witness is very powerful just by you agreeing to be here tonight, in
Absolutely.
addition to what you have shared. And know your child. For
Yeah.
all the members of the National Parents Union who are
Yeah.
watching this, know your child
Reach out.
to be able to know when to say, that sounds like her, that sounds like him,
Absolutely.
or mm-mm, that doesn't sound right. That's a different character trait than I know them to have. And sometimes that is the case,
Right.
but I do think that oftentimes the home life and the school life are very disconnected when there
Absolutely.
should be we should be working in
Yeah,
tandem
we
with
should be a companion. Yes.
because our goal is the same. We have that child in common.
Hmm.
So
But
thank you.
is the goal the same?
The
That's the real
goal is
question.
what? Wait a minute.
Is the goal the
Starting
same?
something with 2 minutes left in the broadcast. Is the goal the same?
Is the goal the same? Is
Like
the goal the same? And it's not always the case. It's not.
it's not. And that's when we have to dig a little deeper and go in further and do what as parents needs to be done for our
Absolutely.
children.
Absolutely.
Ebony Wilkins, thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for everyone who participated. Thank you, Susie. We see Maxine. Thank you, Naomi. There were several people who participated tonight and really made this. It just felt like a family reunion in a sense.
Yes. Yes.
It really did.
Yes.
Um, Naomi is adding, I want to get her response in. That's where we have to find a school and educators who share our
Yes.
goal for our children.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The issue is when all the only option for parents is that neighborhood school.
Absolutely.
And they feel like, well, what else am I going to do? Um,
Absolutely.
but there need to be options, and there are options. And as you've demonstrated for us tonight, even when you're in situations that seem as if there are no options, um, a way is always made.
Yes.
So thank you, Maxine. Thank
Thank
you for the
you,
great dialogue, for being a valued member of it. Thank you, Ebony, for adding value to our
Maxine.
National
Thank you
Parents
for having me.
platform, for Speak Your Truth. Thanks you for speaking your truth.
Yes.
And this won't be the last time
No.
you'll be on. This is I'm kind of asking telling. This won't be the last time. Because I'm going to invite you again, and I'm praying that you say yes.
Yes.
See, ladies and gentlemen, she already said yes. So that's an agreement, and we will have Ebony Wilkins back.
Thank you.
You are so welcome for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I love you.
Wonderful night. I love you too. So kiss the boys for me.
I
Tell
will.
I have to. We have to connect soon.
We will.
This
We will.
we have to.
We can't take 2021 away from us either.
It's not gonna happen.
No.
It's gonna happen. Take care, all right, Elle?
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
Good night. Good night, everyone. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you next week on the National Parents Union Presents Speak Your Truth. Until then, be well.